Student expectations and technology continue to shift the ways in which we learn. A distinctive rise in online learning has also caused both design educators and students alike to explore new tools in keeping up with the demands of 21st century learning. As new forces reshape the academic and landscape, and as conversations around educational accessibility pervade public debate, we ask, how can existing methodologies of design research evolve to enhance the student experience and equip them with the skills needed for future professional practice? Our first speaker is Professor Amishi Vadgama, who is a textile designer and researcher. She is currently an assistant professor at the Institute of Design, Nirma University in Ahmedabad, and she is also pursuing her PhD from the National Institute of Design, also in Ahmedabad, India. Amisha, please.
Hello, Thomas. Thank you very much for sharing. So I would like to just a second. Sorry, I just have a little bit of a technical issue here with my. Yes, sorry for that. So thank you very much for the introduction. I am basically going to be talking about design education in precarious times. I am a textile designer and I have been an educator for about 4 years. My work with crafts has been beyond 10 to 12 years, and my paper is basically based on that. So here I talk about how the pandemic has forced humankind to innovate, and now the challenging new normal that we talk about. And I'm trying to look at how different colleges and universities have found new ways to bridge a gap between online and in-person teaching. So I would like to share, in a nutshell, a paper presentation. There is a little bit of a problem with this slide, so I will go on to the next. I basically look at two case studies here. I look at educational institutions that are teaching design, and I look at rural setups, which is the crafts sector in India, which have been greatly affected, where I see that through the research and through the fieldwork that I do and the experience of the teaching so far, where educators are rethinking the roles of what they teach, of the online learning and teaching, how virtual demonstration tools in material related courses has changed, because design itself is a lot with hands-on material related work and a lot of design thinking as well. So it is a combination of both, where rethinking the expression of hands-on learning through online education takes place, and also how the physical and digital tools bring in flexibility in learning. It also reveals an openness of educators to design new methods for efficient learning. And while we look at the rural setups of the craft sector, we look at how the rural areas and the setups have a global connectivity that has increased of their traditional craft. It's an opportunity of time to make creative explorations of their generation-old craft, where some date back to more than 400-year-old crafts, which I will be sharing examples of. And it is a time that they got to rethink their existence and their history, and also a connectivity to design schools across the globe, where they have been working with workshops, lectures, and demonstrations, which they otherwise wouldn't have if this would have not turned online. So here is an example of educational institutions, one that I am associated with right now, which is Nirma University in India. And I look at how the equipments and tools have changed, where the image on the right that you see is a course of basic typography, where you use manual tools and you use demonstration methods, which ideally was a one-to-one session that you have with the student. But there is an entire setup that we have had to evolve, where we show a degree of stroke that the student needs to make through the demonstration by being online. So that was a new tool that we had to develop for specific course related work. And I also look at how the practical courses, like the image that you see on the left, is one of the courses where a group of students are working with a course of Internet of Things of third year. And they've developed a remote control system for water pump for the agricultural sector. And they have worked much with coding. They have worked with robotics. They have worked with design, and all of this has been done online. A very important tool that we have used in education, and which through the research has come up, is the online discussion boards and the presentation boards, which has been such an important part of, for example, conferences or education curriculums, or be it all areas of education, where it is as good as people walking in an exhibition area and discussing, and that has completely changed into a virtual setup. I further look at how there is a design school in the urban area which is connected to a traditional craft. So here is an example of an artisan, a master craftsman in a remote area of Maharashtra, where he is demonstrating his work to students who are across the country. And the students have learned through a mediator and a translator what is the traditional craft, what is the importance of that craft. And this has also taken place in many areas where crafts have not reached even the urban areas, and not even to a global level. So this has helped collaboration across the globe, and this has been a very important factor, especially for the grassroots level experience. So the design and the craft is basically walking hand in hand today. I further also look at a case study where one of the artisan group that I have worked with also while I continue my PhD, he has had time. If you see the image in the center is a wall art, which is a complication, and the setup which he explains through his understanding of the pandemic, and how he paves ways to see what is there in the future. And he has very actively developed a game from his traditional craft, which is patented, and he aims to send this particular game to a global level, and he's already sharing details about the process. And this particular craft dates back to 400-year-old history that is here. So this has gone to a global level, and it has helped many people to know more, and helped him also. This is an example of how the online learning has helped virtual workshops and discussions and demonstrations, which otherwise the craft sector has not very much worked with. It always was about people visiting their hometown and the rural area. But now it is how people can visit virtually, and that has led to a big difference in educating the different parts of the world. So here I understand, and through the research and through the paper, I aim to share that the experience of a physical exhibition, for example, versus a virtual exhibition has led to a, a flexibility of education where there are no boundaries. Though in terms of health, there is a downfall that the pandemic has pushed the world to, but it has opened many more doors of education and online learning and sharing information. So my objective and methodology through this particular study is the ethnographic and case study over various locations. I have had a direct and participant observation and interviews with them with live experiences, and visual ethnography is what I look at mainly. My findings let me know that the online teaching has greatly evolved, and it has given an open doors to experience what has been expressed through a virtual platform. And it does give educators and learners a future to explore more in the field of experiential learning. So that is something that I strongly have believed through this research. And thank you so much for hearing me. And that would be the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Amishi. It's interesting when you look at the emerging methods of learning, it's quite striking to see that you're experiencing many of the same changes and technologies. You're looking at Miro and Zoom and all the things that we're having similar experiences with here as well. But then again, your research interesting, builds those bridges, as you said, between the traditional and the modern, the rural and the urban. And I'm sure when we get to the question period in a moment, there'll be some questions on how you move that, and certainly also when you're exploring in particular the craft sector. So we'll ask you to hold for a moment for a few questions from the chat, and we'll introduce our next speaker. Our final presenter in this theme is Dr. Wei Wang, who brings industrial and international experience to the School of Design in Hunan University. Professor Wang directs the Tangible User Interface and Intelligent Interaction System Lab and the Interactive Product Experience Design Studio. His research looks at the application of emerging technologies and consumer behavior in consumer electronics. He previously worked at the Nokia Research Center in Queen Mary University of London and at the Georgia Institute of Technology before he joined Hunan University. He received his PhD in 2008. Professor Wang, it's great to see you again. Please, the floor is yours.
Sorry, can you hear me?
There, we can hear you loud and clear. Yes, welcome. Good to see you again.
Sorry for that. It's just a common issue for online conference and online teaching, right? Always forgot to unmute. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everyone, to being with us. It's a great opportunity to share some experience from this research. It's a joint research between the researcher in Hunan University in China and also the researcher from Georgia Tech. So we will talk about the hybrid industrial design education in the pandemic world today. As you know, that design education always thrived on global collaboration. However, the COVID pandemic changed everything. So this research we present today is a continued research before the COVID. So in 2017, some researcher in Georgia Tech and Hunan University, we have some joint collaboration and explore the new industrial design curriculum, especially for the undergraduate students in both schools. So we try to put more new technology, especially the smart technology, teaching and learning in our traditional industrial design curriculum. For example, in Georgia Tech, we changed the undergraduate curriculum with the smart technology and some of the interactive product lab trainings. And in Hunan, we also changed the curriculum as well with some Arduino learning and such of new user experience related stuff. In 2020, we compared the similarity and difference between the undergraduate ID education between the United States and China, and we opened some issue on the pedagogy, curriculum organization, and also the culture difference. However, COVID come and change everything. So it changed all stuff related with design education. So it forced us from face-to-face education, shift to emergent distant learning method. And in last 2 years, I believe every educator in this world explore different way to deliver our education in this new, we call the new normal, right? So, for example, some researcher address that the traditional, the campus-based education have to adapt some new model to deliver the learning and the teaching experience. How we need to, how we can use the advantage of the ICT and other technology to deliver our the new knowledge and also educate over new talents. That's a great topic for every educators. So here in this presentation, I want to share two cases or two related this conversation between different educators in this world. So in the end of the last summer, we organized a global education seminar in Hunan, but we invite different educators in this world from RIT, from Caledon, from Eindhoven to discuss the challenge and the different the opportunity for next generations, the global education. And we collected some very interesting thoughts. For example, even at that time, in different places in this world, we adapt this new hybrid teaching mode in different ways. In some countries, they adapt faster than others, but we found all the participants in this design seminar all agree that this is actually a great experience for our student and educator to use this kind of new method to figure out how we teach the design educations. So all presenters agree that we somehow have some successful in this kind of hybrid design education. However, with this kind of current technology limitation, it raised some new challenge for our curriculum. Our curriculum need to adapt this kind of new environment, the physical and also the virtual environment, and also need to adapt to our student and faculty's expectation in next years. So, for example, in different design school now in the world, over curriculum and over pedagogy, mainly based on the traditional face-to-face delivery way. And that's why there are fewer class on the campus would be friendly with this kind of new online teaching method. And also, it also gave us some the new challenge for our next generation of the designers. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Is my microphone on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Professor Wang, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I can hear you very clearly. Sorry for my part, the technical issue. So the second part of my presentation will focus on the design studio learning experience and how we can successfully deliver it in a hybrid method. So in this part, there are some studies on the post-pandemic world, especially in the design education. For example, some researchers surveyed the design education in India and also in UKs, and they figure out that based on the first several months or the first years, they call the emergent teaching, emergent distant learning. So we somehow already adapt a meaningful and positive hybrid teaching especially in 2020, in 2021 and 2022, I believe. However, from the different researchers all point out that compared with a general satisfaction with design education, design studio, the students' experience is somehow low because design studio is some place that we have some intensive communication, face-to-face critique, and a lot of interaction between different student peers, which have been mainly limited by the online format. So in this study, we take two examples in Hunan and in Georgia Tech to study our students' experience in different design studio setups. So we run some case study on both sides. And this is the timeline we compare for different practice in these two universities. So in Hunan, we have the online semester in the 2020 spring, and we back to the face-to-face teaching in 2024, the fall semester in 2020. However, we still keep a lot of online platform during the face-to-face teaching. On the other side, in Georgia Tech, we shifted to the online a little bit than the China side. However, we have a longer online teaching cover the whole 2020s and continue to the 2021, the spring semester. And during the 2021 spring semester, in Georgia Tech, we try to deliver, we call a hybrid teaching mode that we limited some face-to-face discussion or contact hour, but keep mainly on the online format. But we still have some limited chance to deliver some like the shop or the lab practice in person. And in 2021, the fourth semester, Georgia Tech back to the in-person teaching. So that's a different timeline. Based on this different timeline, we explore some very interesting ideas and learnings from each side that we want to share with us, with everyone. So the first interesting thing is now if you look at our students' computer in different schools in the world, you will find a lot of different softwares. So in Hunan, we use those kind of software to deliver our teaching and learning. However, in Georgia Tech, we use a totally different company, different style of the software to deliver some similar teaching or education job. The very interesting part is on the online design. So this is some part we call the common ground that we use some very similar tools, but for the archiving and project communication, different universities have different ways. So those kind of technology, they provide us some benefit, but they also give us some limitation to share and to communicate across different universities. So that's one big challenge we found from this study. And also we made some survey from the students, their feedback on the online studio experience, both in Hunan and Georgia Tech. You can find they mention some common things. The props include the flexible time and easy to organize, more efficiency to deliver their assignment and get teachers' feedback. However, it has some cons on both sides. Both of them mentioned that based on the online studio, they have a longer working hours, and they also lack the communication interaction between their peers. And we all know that we have the design education, especially design studio, should benefit not just from the instructor, but also with students, peers communication. So that's one big bottleneck now here. And we also summarize some of the findings in studio and both in China and the United States, and our new opportunity with the design education and the trends. I would like to answer more questions related to this. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for my mic during my presentation.
Not at all. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Wang. It was very nice to see, to be reminded of the conference you had this past summer on the topic of new learning. But I think what was really interesting, in particular about your presentation, was that in fact, you bridged all three themes. So you were talking about new learning through a more human-centered approach to technology in the context of COVID. So you really blended those three themes nicely together. At this point, we're going to bring Amishi back, and we have some questions now from our chat line. And we have one for each of you and one for both of you. So Amishi, if we could start with you. We have a question here. How has online learning elevated the craft sectors, and were there any hesitations that you had to manage?
Okay, thank you for the question. So yes, the online platform has absolutely helped them immensely, like you saw in my presentation, and they have begun extending their reach to a wider audience without traveling there physically. And it has helped them not only just spread the word of their work, but it has also helped them look through into their own work, and it is questioning their own history. And that is bringing more knowledge to the world outside. And it's been very challenging for them, and also members like us who are mediators sometimes to work with them, where they understand their worth and how important their craft and tradition is. And I think with time, when the word is spread, they have realized this on their own. So I think online platform has helped them sort of revive that.
Thank you very much. Now, Professor Wang, this question, well, first of all, the question is, what surprised you most about your students' adaptation to the new normal? And I guess I'm curious, since you've taught in so many different contexts, how you might answer that question, let's say at Georgia Tech versus at Hunan University. So two different contexts. What surprised you most about your students' adaptation to the new normal?
Yes, great questions. So for the common part, in the beginning of the pandemic, I think no matter the students in Georgia Tech or Hunan, and the instructor, we're all struggling to adapt this kind of new normal. But after the first several months, students could become more familiar with this kind of new platform, how they can deliver the assignment. From my observation that my students in United States, they adapt, to be honest, they adapt faster than Chinese students. Because on one hand, in Georgia Tech, at least in Georgia Tech, they can provide more facilities, the internet connection, and also some very good IT platform provided by the university, but support the teaching and archiving all across world. On the China side, it's quite like based on each instructor's experience and how they communicate with different students in different classrooms. So university don't have mandatory tools. A student and instructor could select a different platform, for example, from WeChat to QQ to other social media or online platform to deliver their online teaching. It's good with some more flexible, but on the other hand, it lacks some standard experience, I have to see, and also to organize or manage the academic in the school or university level.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe for this last question, we'll go in reverse order. Maybe start with you, Professor Wang. The question is, or there's a statement and a question here. We are joined by a lot of design educators online. What advice can you offer to educators looking to adapt their curriculum to this new online reality? So any advice you would have for educators who are trying to adapt to this new environment?
Maybe I can shoot first.
Okay,
Yeah,
please,
sure.
yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I think this is new things for everyone, no matter for students or instructors. So we all need to learn, especially that for the instructor, it means very heavy work, sometimes double work to prepare you syllabus, and it ask us to prepare everything, especially for a student instructor, to prepare everything carefully and so thoroughly before the studio run. So otherwise, it will have a lot of maybe problem or issues will pop up. So this is one thing. And another thing is we have to adapt to different technologies, technology. So, and figure out how we can deliver that in a stable way. For example, like my presentation today. Yes.
Great, thank you. So finally, Amishi, we're going to give you the honor of taking the last question for the chat for this session today. So from your point of view, what advice would you give to educators?
I think with experience, one advice would be to look at the curriculums individually, because I think each course has its own way of teaching and it needs its separate way of understanding how the students or the learners are going to learn. So I think the educators should look at individual curriculums and courses and try and design ways of making that interesting, not just for the teaching, but also for the students to learn better, and try and have a holistic experience for that course. So I think that would be the way.
That to me is a fantastic ending. Thank you. So this concludes actually the presentation part of the day today.